welcome to this episode of Date with Tech, brought to you by Trescon in association with Below the Fold and Launch Foundry. I'm your host, Naveen Bharadwaj, perhaps a familiar face. With me, I have today Justin Baldacchino, who's the Managing Director of Dubai Financial Services Authority. Justin, welcome to Date with Tech.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Thank you. Happy to have you here. And I'm going to jump straight into our convo here because one of the things that most people that are trying to learn about the UAE financial landscape wonder is there's DIFC, there's DFSA, there's ADGM, there's Department of Finance, there's Ministry of Finance, then there's UAE Central Bank. They're confused, right? So I think it might serve the opportunity well if you can talk to us about DFSA's specific role in the UAE's financial landscape.
That's fine. It's a great question. I guess from a DFSA perspective, we've been around for about 21 years now. So if you think about where and how we were established, we sit within 110 acres. It's a dedicated financial centre and it's an international financial centre. We have coming close to about 1,000 firms that have been authorised and registered within the financial centre. So if you do look at that from a comparison perspective, and then what's unique about the DIFC, the community that we actually regulate, we actually have a common law system, so we have our own court system. And if you take a look around, what was done globally, I think we're one of the first to actually do that. So I think it's the visionary leadership of Dubai for way ahead in relation to let's establish this financial centre. And, as the old saying goes, if you build it, they will come. And they have come. Yeah. And we've seen huge growth in the last 3 years, especially out of COVID. And from 2022, 2023, 2024, they have been our busiest years in regards to new firms coming in, but also the existing firms actually deepening their footprint within Dubai, which is fantastic to see.
Absolutely. And just to pick up on that one thing you said, you guys were the first in the world. I think there is no two ways to that, right? Because Dubai and the leadership here is you are either number one or you're not there at all.
Correct.
Right? So
and you try to buy, you try to build the biggest thing possible. And I think we see it across the skyline here. Burj Khalifa itself, still one of the tallest buildings in the world. So it has a flow-on effect. And I think the ecosystem sort of draws on each other to make things bigger and better. And they've definitely done that here.
So 113 acres and 1,000 plus companies and counting. That's huge. That's almost a city in itself, isn't it?
It's amazing. Yes.
And I think hundreds of thousands of people perhaps working across different companies.
But also the ecosystem is just drawing more and more people into the DIFC.
Yeah. So DFSA regulates DIFC companies only.
Correct.
And the common law system is exclusive to DIFC registered companies.
So if you think about it, what's unique about it is within that 110 acres of the DIFC, we have the ability to have our own rules, regulations and regimes within that. The only thing that we don't have control over is from the fact of criminal law. So if you do something wrong within the DIFC, that's going to be the same across Dubai. But everything else, we have our own employment law. We have our own personal data law, and the court system itself is contained within the DIFC, which is again quite unique.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, one of the things that Dubai has also done a fantastic job with, it's not just the DFSA or the DIFC, but also when it comes to adoption of blockchain, and adoption of tokenization. I think the leadership here, the government, as well as just generally the community has gone many steps forward compared to a lot of other countries. Now, DFSA launched the tokenization regulatory sandbox, right?
Yes, so,
curious to know, what was the drive? Where did this spark come from? And what does this tokenization regulatory sandbox do? And how does it benefit the community at large?
So what it is, the base of the sandbox itself is leveraging off our innovation testing license. So we've had that sandbox itself established since 2017, and what we've been able to do is look at different innovation coming in to Dubai globally and trying to sort of react to the demand of what we're seeing from the industry. So the one thing that DFSA does very well, we work very closely with the industry to understand, not only about the trends today, but what do the trends look like into the future. And what we did see is we released our tokenization regime back in 2021. So we already started to see demand then. But what we've seen over the last few years, that demand has started to grow. So what we thought, in order to react to the industry, is we put up a expression of interest to actually attract firms who are doing tokenization and getting it to leverage from an innovation and testing license perspective. Now, what's unique about our sandbox compared to other regulators globally is they have a fully closed sandbox, which means you can do the testing, but you're not dealing with real life clients.
Yeah.
And we do the opposite of that. We do, okay, let's do the testing and the innovation, but let's test it with real life clients.
Nice.
But we do it on a restricted basis. So we work very closely with the firm to put them through an authorization process. And then what we do is trying to determine what those restrictions look like. So it's going to be on a case by case basis. So from a resource perspective, we spend a lot of time sort of, helping those firms grow, but to do it in the right way and to ensure that we still offer the investor protections of whoever's investing in those firms.
So typically sandboxes are guardrailed and boundaries, and the practicality or the applicability in the industry is not known until you actually go to market. And then there are a lot of risks associated with that. So what you're telling me is you are creating that pipe or bridge or pathway to select clients or select communities. So this innovation can be tested in real life.
In real life,
so not just in production.
Yes, correct. And then for some firms, the growth aspects of what they want to do, some can do it a lot quicker and some take more time. So what we do is we actually work so closely with the firm to say, okay, if you want to do it quicker, we'll work with you in order to then start to release those restrictions.
Right.
So if you do it a great job and you start to expand, you have the right governance and controls, and and we take a risk-based approach. We're a risk-based approach regulator. We then work with the firm to say, okay, look, great, that first step, second step, you've done it way before maybe firm B and C. So then those restrictions will be removed over time.
Right. So innovation-friendly regulation.
Correct. But also listening to the industry. I think the biggest part of the regulator's job is to listen to the industry and then react to the industry. The challenge we have, of course, is from an innovation perspective, it moves very quickly.
Yeah.
So then what we have to do is react to how quickly the industry is moving and update our regime and our rules and our regulations as quickly as the industry.
More often than not, the reason why I laughed is people or the industry thinks that regulators don't listen to them. But if they actually look at the casing point here in Dubai, it's the opposite. Regulators proactively reach out. DFSA proactively reaches out to the industry.
Correct. So, and a good way we do that from a formal perspective, if you think about the fact that where DFSA is one of the regulators that we do, probably one of the most consultation with the industry. So we put together, say, a regime that we want to do or we want to introduce, and we put it out for consultation, and we wait for feedback. Once we get that feedback, we read through it all, and we say, okay, we didn't think about that. So then we adjust the regime itself to take a risk-based approach to make sure also we have the firm in mind, but also make sure we've got the investors in mind. Because investor protection is our number one priority as a regulator. We need to build the trust. And I think the DFSA, over the 21 years of existence, has been able to build that trust over time.
So you mentioned investor protection a couple of times. So I think it's perhaps an internal mature priority, right? So can we talk a little bit about that? Because emerging technology is this amazing, super awesome landscape that everybody wants to dip their hands and toes into, investors wants to put their money into. But as DFSA, what role or how do you balance this innovation, investment, risk aversion, and protection of the money that's actually being deployed?
Yeah, so we do that on a daily basis. So we have a lot of bilateral meetings. We do a lot of thematic reports, so try to understand what the risk is of the ecosystem. And then what we do a lot of outreaches.
Right.
So we have a huge amount of outreaches where it's on a particular topic. It might be on crypto tokens, it might be on tokenization, but it might be on just safeguarding funds. Of people who are investing. So not only do the firms want it, but also the investors want it.
True.
For us, it's a win-win, but it's making sure that you do have the ability to have those open discussions. And it's not the fact that it's open for all changes, but we want to listen to the industry, and we want to be able to work with the industry to get to that safe point.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of that again, digital assets is a space. I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, it's broader than tokenization alone.
Yes.
This is no longer a trend. It's no longer a buzzword because digital assets have become a reality, and UAE is positioning itself as a digital economy or a digital native economy. Right? So, what's DFSA doing when it comes to the acceleration of innovation within the digital assets space, but at the same time making sure that the regulatory guardrails are all up, ready, and
I'll give you a great example, and again, this is public information. But a few years back, even the more traditional firms that were probably hesitant to go into this space, over the last few years, we've seen a huge lean towards wanting to do more in regards to the digital asset space. So a good example of that is Standard Chartered Bank, for example. They are leaning into the digital asset space because it's the demand that they're seeing from their clients. And so they're reacting to that demand, which is extremely positive. Now, what's positive for us is they tried to determine a business that they wanted to put in place, which was a digital asset custody business.
Right.
Now, they could have set that up anywhere around the world. It could have been a Singapore, a Hong Kong, a London, or New York. But where did they decide? They decided to do it in Dubai. They looked around Dubai, and when you go to the DFSA, you're actually blown away by the focus of what Dubai wants to do and what the UAE wants to do. Now, the fact that we have a AI minister at the
first
UAE
in
level,
the world.
the first in the world, is phenomenal. And so these global firms are looking around and saying, actually, if Dubai wants to be at the forefront of innovation and technology, and we can see it through the event that we're at the moment, it's
the
fantastic.
Dubai Fintech Summit by DFSA.
It's fantastic. So for us, we're leaning into that because, again, they're one of the first to do that digital custody business. And so as a regulator, we also have to work with them because we're learning as much as anyone else to see the best way to set it up. And the good thing for us, if you think about it, something like custody, it's a traditional business that's been around for decades. But you're doing a digital angle. So when you introduce a digital angle, what is the governance around that? What are your risk and control? And so for us, we need to get comfortable that they've got the appropriate controls and make sure it's appropriate also for people who are actually offering that custody business.
It's one of the interesting points that you just mentioned is about the Standard Chartered's selection of Dubai as their preferred place, right? Now, I know you're from Melbourne. You worked in Hong Kong and perhaps a couple of other cities and countries in the world. And then you're here in Dubai for the last 6 odd years, right? What do you see is the difference? What's actually driving Dubai, the innovation, as well as the, let's say, the regulatory landscape, the custody landscape, the fintech landscape, or largely speaking, the financial innovation landscape? What's the difference, Justin?
Look, I'll tell you what the main difference is, and I'm proven fact of that. One thing the DFSA has done, we don't just recruit regulators. We recruit people from industry, and we recruit regulators as well. My background is I spent 20 years on the banking side. So I wasn't a regulator before, but my whole career I've dealt with regulators. So previous to this, when I was in Hong Kong, I was the head of regulatory management for JP Morgan. And I looked after 14 countries, 32 offices. And if I look at my interactions with regulators back then, and I compare it to what we do here in Dubai, it's a total standout. And what I mean by that, when we get a request for a meeting from an international firm, we take the meeting and we have these interactions and we listen to the industry, and then we try to work out, okay, what is it that we can do? And of course, what do we determine that we can't do? So we make it clear to the industry. And I think it's that the small nuances, like what you said, Dubai is open for business, but doing good business the right way. And if you don't do good business the right way, then you wouldn't see the growth that we've seen. We've seen phenomenal growth in relation to, as I said, the new firms coming in, record years 2022, 2023, 2024, and our pipeline sees that growth is going to continue.
No pressure.
For sure.
Now, it's quite interesting that DFSA is recruiting people from within the industry. So DFSA is not just listening to the industry, but it's also bringing the industry
Definitely.
into the system
Yes.
to help make better decisions, to make supervision more aligned with
Correct.
the changing landscape out there. Yeah,
And always taking that risk-based approach. So
Yeah.
even with me coming from a bank, and now I regulate those sort of banks.
do you like it?
It's great because it's an understanding. I have that experience of, look, institutions always want to do the right thing by the regulator, and I think what happens is you get a couple of bad actors that spoil it for everyone.
True.
Because majority of all the firms that we regulate, they want to meet the regulation. They want to do it the right way.
Yeah.
And so what we always do, and this comes down also from top leadership, is from our perspective, from a DFSA perspective, my own chief executive does always say that if someone does something wrong, then you should enforce against that particular firm or that individual. But don't spoil it for everyone else who's doing the right thing.
True.
And I think that's so important. So we do have an approach, and it's a firm approach. If someone does the wrong thing, we do enforcement against the firm itself. We show it publicly to show what the industry should and shouldn't do. But for us, what we don't want to do is add more regulatory burden. And we see that globally. So when something goes wrong,
Regulate it, make it strict, and impose restrictions.
More regulation, impose more restrictions. But how is that going to foster innovation? It's not going to foster
No,
innovation.
it's only going to be a deterrent.
Correct.
Let's
Correct.
face it.
So you can see by the matters of what we've seen in regards to growth. I think we're doing that the right way.
Yeah.
We're not here to burden the firms. Actually, we have a regulatory burden project where we want to reduce the amount of burden that we give to firms, because we want to increase the capability of innovation through each of those firms.
The fact that you've all recognized that there could be a regulatory burden and proactively doing something about it, I think puts you way ahead of a lot of your other counterparts out there. Interestingly, I've also read a couple of notices or circulars on DFSA website, and I can relate to this accountability on the company as opposed to that industry or the sector or a community at large. So you name them.
Yes.
And you mention what was the situation or scenario, but you're not discouraging people from venturing into that space. You're just warning them of that specific company.
Correct. We're being fully transparent. And I think that transparency is going a long way. And so when people decide, where is it that I want to set up? Do I want to set up in a Hong Kong or a Singapore or New York or a London? We're hearing this more often than not. They want to be based here, within Dubai. So for us, that's fantastic.
On a light local term, Habibi, come to Dubai. I think that suits well for the world, right? Firstly, congratulations on another regional first, if not global first, the Regulatory College. But I think the fact that you're engaging your counterparts from around the world, taking inputs, ideas, and then coming up with actionable, perhaps, insights or activities or initiatives, which could also benefit them. So you're trying to uplift.
Correct. Uplift, and also taking the best of what we're hearing and seeing, and make sure that it's fit for purpose for what we want to achieve from a Dubai and a UAE perspective. And I think the DFSA, that's at the heart of the DFSA. What is the best for Dubai and the UAE?
Yeah, I think it sits quite nicely with the theme of the country, which was announced by His Highness Mohammed bin Zayed at the beginning of the year of community, right?
Definitely.
2026 is all about community. Together is stronger. Yes. So you're doing that truly by bringing all those different counterparts from around the world.
We are. And look, it doesn't take a lot. When we tell people we're doing a regulatory college in Dubai, everyone wants to come to Dubai.
Why wouldn't you want to come to Dubai? Give me 3 good reasons.
Fantastic.
Give me 1 good reason.
Exactly.
Very good.
Exactly.
So is it safe to assume that the priorities for DFSA or yourself for the coming years is driving that innovation, supervision, smart industry-focused regulations around finance, fintech, AI, cybersecurity, digitization, digital assets, tokenization, just generally these emerging technologies? Is there something in the mix that we are missing?
Yeah, definitely. Everything that you said, but also ensuring that we always take a risk-based approach.
Yeah.
Because, again, we have to stand back and think about what risk does this bring to the ecosystem, as opposed to just branding everyone as you're risky, because that's not the case. And so we have to take a risk-based approach and make sure that we're able to develop the innovation space and also be consistent with the D33 strategy of Dubai. The aim is to make sure that we create an international financial center that everyone wants to be at. And I think we're on the way to do that.
Fantastic. So smart supervision,
Yes.
intelligent risk mitigation or aversion,
Yes.
and accelerated innovation. So you're trying to bring all of that to make sure that the industry doesn't see you as that strict three-piece and tie penalizer, but actually a friend. An enabler, a partner that can make their business successful, that can help an investor with protection of their money and just generally drive not just the Dubai or the country or the regional landscape, but the global landscape.
Correct.
Fantastic.
Correct.
Now, I want to ask you one question that's
No problem.
about yourself, but before we jump onto that, is there anything else about DFSA that you want to share? Any priorities, any new initiatives, or something super cool that's coming up that you're allowed to share with us?
No problem. I think the innovation testing license, I think it's really important that your viewers actually know that it does exist. Now, people will say that because we're doing a cohort just for tokenization, it's not limited to just tokenization. It's for anything that has an innovation lens. And so what we do, that process is open all the time. So anyone can come in and actually talk to us about what they're looking at and what they're focused on. And we can have an open discussion. So feel free to contact the DFSA at any time and have that discussion and then take it to the next step in regards to potentially going through a pre-application process and then going through and hopefully having that actual innovation testing license going forward.
Justin, thank you so much for joining us today on our episode of Date with Tech. Look forward to all the amazing things that DFSA is doing and, of course, all the amazing things that you will be driving at your capacity as the managing director there.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.